I got nothing to say about Half-Life.
Well, it's not dead anyway.
I have nothing to say about Half-Life.
Welcome to Valve Software in Bellevue, Washington. 22 years ago, when I was in college, I visited Valve to write a story about the making of the original Half-Life. That's me, my flip phone, and Gabe Newell in 1998. Now, over the past decade, I've wondered, just like you, if Valve would ever make another Half-Life. Well, 13 years after Episode 2, I'm back inside Valve to tell you the story of just how it happened. This is the behind-the-scenes tale of how a passionate team banded together, despite the obstacles, to build something we all worried might never come to pass: the next great Half-Life game.
I'm with you every step of the way.
Hey guys, it's Geoff Keighley, and today's a special day because my new app, The Final Hours of Half-Life Alyx, is out now on Steam for Mac and PC. This is a 25,000-word multimedia experience that takes you through the past decade at Valve Software, including their triumphant return to the Half-Life franchise. And what I wanted to do now was read you the first chapter, the first of 15, to give you a sense of what's inside of this story. So let's take a look at that now. All right, here's chapter 1 of The Final Hours of Half-Life Alyx, and it is called The Gift for Burning. When he was 9 years old in 1998, James Jay Benson would close his eyes and imagine the immersive thrill of playing a specific video game. Growing up the son of a divorced primary school teacher and a Royal Air Force navigator on an AWACS aircraft, Benson, most of the time, lived at his mum's house in Southport, England, with nary a computer in sight. But every other weekend, Jay visited Dad and Dad's PC on the RAF Waddington base. On most Saturdays, Benson and his dad went fishing or took a bike ride around the shed. But if Jay, or Jazzman as his dad called him, was being really honest, all he wanted to do was boot up his pop's PC and stand inside his dream, a video game named Half-Life. Since he could only sneak in a couple of hours of gameplay every other weekend, it took young Benson over 6 months to maneuver his way out of the Black Mesa Research Facility, meet the G-Man, and finish Half-Life, and that was only after carefully copying in his saved game files not to erase his dad's. To Jay Benson and to millions of gamers around the world, playing Half-Life, with its alchemic blend of genre-defining narrative, intense combat, and vibrant ambiance, was a formative experience. Half-Life has cascaded through gaming and popular culture for more than 2 decades. Some people play and appreciate video games from a distance, treating them as no more than an escapist hobby. Jay Benson, it turns out, is not one of those people. Even in the years after Half-Life's release, Benson couldn't stop thinking about the game's most resonant moments, which tumbled through his mind like lucid dreams. When he flunked out of university at age 17 and started serving baked beans to old ladies at a local cafe, Benson sat in the break room, closed his eyes, and started daydreaming once again. This time he set an audacious personal goal. In 3 years, he told himself, he was going to get a job working at Valve, one of the most venerated game developers in the world. There was just one problem, or perhaps many. You see, Jay didn't have any particular game design skills beyond bashing together what might charitably be described as fanfic levels in the RPG game Neverwinter Nights. He didn't program, he didn't draw, although his girlfriend Jenny thought him to be a very creative individual. Undeterred, Jazzman flew to the Game Developers Conference in San Francisco to hone, or perhaps better put, to discover his unrevealed craft. His first stop, a game design talk by Robin Walker, a Valve developer behind Team Fortress 2. Galvanized by Walker's 1-hour GDC session, Benson spun into action. He described his mindset to the Crits Cast Team Fortress podcast in 2010. "If you want to do something great, feeling relaxed, it's a bad feeling," he said over voice chat. "Why am I going home and browsing the internet or watching Glee or House when I could be creating something?" Benson formulated a plan. Over the next year, he would teach himself how to create game animation, working at his girlfriend's parents' house from 9 a.m. to 3 a.m. every day. "I am a withered husk of a man, like the Charger in Left 4 Dead 2, just one giant arm clicking a mouse," Benson explained to the podcast. To track his progress, he wrote down how many frames of animation he completed every day in a Steamworks diary book from GDC. If he didn't get anything done, he forced himself to write "no finished frames" to memorialize his laziness. On the days he wrote those words, Benson remembered a quote from Valve co-founder Gabe Newell he read in Edge magazine. "The greatest fear most people have is being scared for the loss of their abilities." On June 10th, 2010, Benson posted his first animation to YouTube, a 20-second clip of the sniper in Team Fortress dancing to CNC Music Factory's "Gonna Make You Sweat, Everybody Dance Now." "I would love if somebody working in the business could tell me a ballpark estimation of how my skill level is doing in regard to being a professional proposition. Thanks for your time," he posted to the Polycount forum as Jazzman9575. The 9575, in case you were wondering, was his iPhone PIN at the time. Benson had a knack for something. His series of whimsical Team Fortress videos gained hundreds of thousands of views on YouTube. Emboldened, he turned to Half-Life and spent 6 weeks creating a reimagined trailer for the original game with fluid new animations for Gordon Freeman's hands and in-game enemies like headcrabs. The video quickly went viral, amassing over 2 million views. "Animator gets bored waiting, starts creating his own version of Half-Life 3, read the headline on Geek.com. By now, you're probably wondering when Gabe Newell sends Jay Benson an email inviting him to come work at the Dream Factory. Those videos were 100% auditions to get Valve's attention, Benson now sheepishly admits. But they didn't work. The email from Gabe? It never arrived. Determined to wheedle his way in, Benson applied for a Valve job at age 21, just as he told himself he would. He didn't get past the phone interview. The second time he applied, Benson managed to get an in-person interview in Seattle, but after taking beta blockers due to sheer nerves, he screwed up the interview question about designing a villain for Aquaman. It wasn't meant to be. Hapless, Benson settled for a $22,000 a year job as a junior animator at Lionhead on the canceled Kinect game Milo and Kate. After getting laid off there, he worked on animation for a series of acclaimed games, the indie darling Ori and the Blind Forest, and Campo Santo's brilliant Firewatch. No matter what game he was animating, Benson kept a totem by his desk side, his dad's CD jewel case for the original Half-Life with a PC Gamer Game of the Month sticker on it. With his Valve dreams thwarted, Benson, like the rest of the gaming world, carried a faint hope for a consolation prize, getting to play a new Half-Life game, which saw its last installment, Half-Life 2 Episode 2, released 13 years ago in 2007. It's Monday, February 3rd, 2020, the day after the Super Bowl at 3 p.m. sharp. Just off the lobby of Valve's 14th floor office in Bellevue, Washington, a stream of people begins to file into a large open room customarily reserved for VR playtesting. In total, more than 80 employees of Valve, nearly 1/4 of the company, are arriving for the weekly status meeting on Half-Life Alyx. This full-on virtual reality game marks Valve's triumphant return to both the Half-Life franchise and single-player story-driven games. This is sort of the Battle of Helm's Deep in terms of Valve, the largest team we've ever had on a project, explains Jim Hughes, a Valve designer and Star Wars superfan who, in his spare time, kit bashes and 3D prints models of TIE bombers and X-Wings. One day he plans to refilm the Death Star trench run in his living room. As the developers circle up around product lead Robin Walker, it's hard not to be struck by the generations represented, and that the team is still predominantly male and white, something Greg Coomer at Valve acknowledges it needs to fix. There are veterans who shipped the original Half-Life more than 2 decades ago, next to those who worked on the equally acclaimed Half-Life 2 in 2004. Sprinkled amongst them are a new batch of developers who joined Valve in the past decade, hoping that they might one day get to help create a new Half-Life. One of the people in that last category nervously stands off to the side in an Oxford shirt, gnawing at the plastic top of a water bottle. His name? The jazzman himself, Jay Benson, who joined Valve when it acquired Campo Santo in 2018. We could tell you the story about how, when Benson received access to Valve's computer network, he summarily downloaded every canceled project and was flagged by IT as a hacker, but we'll spare him that full embarrassment. With the group assembled in a semicircle, Walker stands between two whiteboards filled with words and charts. One board correlates team member names, such as Tristan Reedford, with tasks like finishing the weapons skins. Tristan refuses to play any section of the game with a head crab because it freaks him out in VR. The other whiteboard is a calendar for the next 6 weeks, broken into 3 phases: final development, serious bugs only, and showstoppers only, meaning bugs that would cause the game to crash. If everything goes according to plan, it all culminates on March 20th, circled in red as the date Half-Life Alyx will be complete after 4 years of top-secret development. As the meeting begins, Walker, an affable Australian with a well-coiffed development beard, looks around and addresses the assembled mass. A lot of people are setting their bugs to critical because it's the default. Please check if it's really critical before logging it that way, he says. Also, someone's been trying to simulate playing the game through with one functional arm. We want to support this, so need an owner that can take that on. Any update on perf? Walker asks, shorthand for inquiring if there are any issues with the game's frame rate dropping, a critical issue in a VR game that needs to run at 90 frames per second in 3D. It's starting to look better than it has in a while, so that's promising, responds Michael Coupland, an 11-year Valve veteran who admits he hasn't yet shipped a game at Valve because his projects keep getting canceled. But please, prioritize minimum spec machines on your playtests, he tells the team. At the opposite end of the room, Dario Casali, who designed levels for the original Half-Life some 22 years ago, throws out a question about the level he's been heading up. The Vault, as it's known, is the final sequence which has gone through a significant overhaul in the past 6 months. Are we still getting external playtesters through? He asked the room. Yes, but the last 2 couldn't get through to the end of the game. Schedule problems, explains designer Jeff Lane, who heads up the playtest when he isn't racing motorcycles. Well, I'm not getting enough external data on the last map, Casali admonishes the group. We have 3 weeks to change the balance, and not enough people are playing through it. Finally, Walker turns to his right. He looks to Benson, probably not even realizing he inspired him to get into game development a decade ago. Jay, how are the gameplay videos coming together? Benson, tasked with editing a series of 3 gameplay videos for YouTube, opens his eyes wide, lifts his chin, and cracks a smile. Oh, quite well, he says. The Subway survival horror video is watchable now, and I'd love some feedback from you guys. To some, Half-Life Alyx represents nothing more than an ambitious, bordering on absurd virtual reality experiment for a limited audience. After all, just 1% of Steam customers own a VR headset. But to those who know Valve best, Alyx serves as a much bigger inflection point for one of the video game industry's most revered studios. Often seen as mysterious, impenetrable, and downright unpredictable, Valve's traditional game output has dramatically decreased, or rather downright stopped, over the past decade. Flush with billions of dollars in revenues from Steam, Valve's industry-leading PC distribution service, some wondered if Valve was impervious to its clamoring fan base and resigned to let Half-Life live on only in our memories. Half-Life Alyx proves otherwise. We get that there's this public perception that everyone who worked on Half-Life left, and that Valve doesn't know how to make those games anymore, explains Phil Coe, a veteran Valve-level designer. Part of what motivated us on this project was to show everyone what this place is still capable of creating. As it turns out, Valve has been creating over the past decade, with little of that work publicly exposed. Half-Life Alyx, for instance, represents at least Valve's 6th attempt to do something new with the Half-Life property since Half-Life 2 Episode 2 ended in 2007 with the illusory promise of Half-Life 2 Episode 3. Valve is in the unique position of having what poet Adrian Rich phrased the gift for burning. Unlike many other creative studios, Valve has the luxury, or you could argue the curse, of shutting down and redoing projects ad infinitum until something emerges that is deemed worthy of its customers' time and money. Now, for the first time, Valve opens up about the past decade behind closed doors. From the canceled projects, the struggles to create a new game engine, and a bet the company push into hardware and virtual reality, shipping Half-Life Alyx is the bright end of a decade-long season filled with the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. A lot of people came to Valve because of what they thought it represented, and it hasn't always been that place for the past decade, Walker openly admits to me one afternoon. For those of us who were here in our first decade, we knew Valve could still be that. Some of this project was about trying to give the people who joined Valve in the second decade that experience we felt in the first. Walker pauses for a minute and closes his eyes, as if to remember the indescribable yet magical feeling that comes from shipping a genre-defining game. It is perhaps the exact feeling that young, impressionable Jay Benson picked up on when he heard Walker's talk back in 2010 at the Game Developers Conference. Walker then continues speaking in a way that suggests, like any good programmer, he's found a more efficient way to express his thoughts. I guess you could say this is the story of how we fixed Valve. And that's the end of Chapter 1, and then we go on into Chapter 2 and beyond of this app. It's a really cool experience, and I'll just share with you a little bit of a tease of some of the stuff that you're going to get to kind of experience as you go through this. There's lots of photos, lots of experiences, lots of cool stuff. We've got some fun moments, some of my favorite things that I'll show you here as we sort of jump around to some of the chapters here. There's a lot of really cool 3D work as well, which I'm really excited about. We took a lot of the game environments and sort of brought them to life inside of the app and whatnot. So really kind of excited to share with you this. There's also some fun puzzles where you can try and solve these to unlock concept art and whatnot. Let's see if I can figure this one out or not. I built the app and I still don't quite know how it all works. Let's see. I think I did it. I unlocked it. Unlocked some concept art. So this is a really fun thing. And again, you'll get to see a lot of the characters. I don't want to spoil too much. There's some really fun things in this app that you get to check out. So anyways, that is the final hours of Half-Life Alyx. So let me show you one more thing that I'm super happy about too. There's a 3D tour of Valve that you can check out. And this is something that is pretty cool. You literally get to walk around floor 14 of Valve and see where the game was made. This is an amazing thing that we put together, and this is the entire development floor of Valve. And you can literally just jump in here and see how they made the game at Valve, which is kind of insane and cool. But you just sort of jump right in, look around the office, and you can even jump into first-person mode and drive yourself around Valve and take a look at how this game was made. This is crazy. We did a lot of fun things on this app. I really hope you guys get to check it out. I'll leave you with that. You can head on to Steam and download it now. It's for PC and Mac. It is $10 or $9.99. It was not the cheapest thing to put together, but we are really excited to kind of share with you the story of Valve over the past decade. I hope you enjoy it. It was fun for me to go back to writing these things that I've been doing for a long time. And I've been so busy over the past half decade with the Game Awards. I haven't had a chance to do one in a long time. So it was nice for me to get to do it. This was sort of my quarantine project, I guess, in a way. So enjoy it. Thanks for being interested in this stuff. Send me feedback on Twitter if you have any thoughts on it. I had a ton of fun doing it. I hope you enjoyed it as well and learned a little bit about Valve and Half-Life 3 and some of the other secret projects that they were working on. So enjoy it, and we'll see you again soon.